You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, there are, look, a lot of NFL owners out there, NBA owners and hockey owners and soccer owners and baseball owners. But I don't think there's anybody who is as outspoken as Mark Cuban. He, of course, is the owner of the Dallas Mavericks. You see him on Shark Tank as well. And someone you will never see in a jacket or a tie. Mark, how you doing?
Hey, I'm getting ready. Wait, can you see that? Hold on. This is for Terry Crews.
Well, he's going to follow you. And so, but I do want to do this before we start. I do want to do this here, folks. Please go to my iPad. I want to personally thank Mark Cuban for donating $100,000 to the National Association of Black Journalists COVID-19 relief efforts in the name of Roger B. Brown and Martin McNeil, both of them two former Dallas Mavericks beat writers. Roger B. Brown was my dear friend, colleague. We were fraternity brothers. We spent lots of times at Dallas Mavericks games. He was a sports director at KKDA Radio, where I was the news director and morning anchor. And so, Mark, I just wanted to personally, I miss him dearly. Just want to certainly thank you for doing that on behalf of those two great sports writers.
Yeah, they were good guys, man. I loved having them at the games. They both had flair, and Marty, you know, would pull no punches with me and take it to me. And Roger, he was one of a kind. So it was my pleasure to try to support in their name.
Indeed. Our favorite Mississippi homeboy. We definitely miss him. I was just talking with the Fritz Pollard Alliance, and I was talking about, of course, the issues the NFL is having. And I said it's very simple. There are only 32 owners. They're the ones who could change this. We can yell and scream and say, Roger Goodell, what are you doing? But he works for 32 owners. You're an owner. You understand that. Adam Silver works for the owners. And so what is it going to take for these owners to wake up and realize what the hell is going on? And they've got to diversify, not just with people who are off the field, especially when you look at who's on the field.
Yeah, I mean, look, I heard you talking about Cap. I just don't get it. I mean, look, if Cap could play basketball, I'd sign him right now. You know, I don't care. If Santa Claus can help me win, I'm all in. And so I don't get it on not at least giving Cap a tryout and bringing him to preseason. And in terms of just, you know, diversity within a league, the NFL is just different than us. I mean, you know, I can't explain why they've had so many challenges. And I don't talk to enough of those guys to really get a feel, Roland.
But I think that the NFL is a microcosm of what we're seeing in corporate America. I think what happens is, and right now, Mark, what you're seeing is what I call revolts, rebellions happening inside of companies where we have black staffers who for years have been saying these are the problems, but now all of a sudden you've got white allies who are also saying we're sick of this, and it's causing these companies to go, okay, what the hell? I mean, that was an advertising agency that their numbers were leaked, and the CEO was shocked to see 2.5% black staffers, and then seeing no senior executives. And I attest that to people who, frankly, walk into a room, and if the room is all white, they're comfortable and don't even think about the fact that it's not diverse.
Yeah, I think what it comes down to is white people don't like to think or talk about race. And I think we all, and I'm just as guilty of this in the past. If I think I'm colorblind, then it's not my problem, and I don't really have a problem. And it's not like white people sit around and say, okay, let's talk about race. Let's talk about the impact on our company. Let's talk about what's going on in the country. It's just not something we're comfortable doing. Just saying the term white race or white people makes any white person uncomfortable because we just don't discuss it. And if you don't feel comfortable discussing it, it's going to be very hard to implement it in a corporate environment. You're
absolutely right. I think back to when I was the only black male news reporter at the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and that's where Roger B. Brown and I first met. And I remember. And I was actually making photocopies of my articles, getting ready to go to the Uni Journalists of Color convention the following week. And we had this huge window where the editorial meeting took place. And I'm standing there and I'm sitting there going, the room is all white. And they probably had 2 women. So one of the editors comes out, Mike Minikini, he sat near me, and I said, Mike, you ever notice there are no black people in that meeting? And he goes, no. I said, well, let me ask you this something, Mike. I said, if you went to the Women's Chambers of Commerce event, how fast would it take you to realize that you're one of the few men there? He said, I probably would figure it out real quick. I said, if you went to the Black Chamber of Commerce event, how long would it take you to figure out that you're one of the few white folks there? He said, probably pretty quickly. I said, but if you went to the Chamber of Commerce, the main one, I said, would you notice that the room was nearly all white? He said, no. And I said, Mike, and that's the difference between me and you. I always notice if the room is all black, if it's women, if it's all white, if it's all Latino, because I have to understand where I am at all times. And I said, and that's part of the problem.
And it's even more than that, Roland. So if I go someplace that is all black and I'm one of the few, if not only white person there, historically I thought, oh, this is no big deal. See, I'm not racist. This is not a problem for me. I can deal with this. And then you move on. I would never translate it to say, okay, what about the opposite side of that? How does that impact, people of color or people of different ethnicities or LGBTQ or, women? It's just not something that we typically talk about as white people. And I think that is the core of what needs to change.
This moment that we're in, I've said this consistently. I cannot recall in my 51 and a half years where we have seen this type of change in 5 weeks. George Floyd was murdered 5 weeks ago yesterday. And a lot has happened. A lot continues to happen. I just saw another story. 300 Target and Best Buy have joined. 350 companies are now pulling their money out of Facebook to say, unless you deal with racism on Facebook, we're not spending money. 350 companies. That's happened in a week.
Yep. Things move fast. And who I give a lot of credit to is Gen Z. Not even millennials, Gen Z. Because they really have grown up in a world. I mean, and look, the oldest Gen Z person is what, 21, 22 years old?
Right.
They've grown up in a world where biracial dating is not something to even look twice at. Your age, my age, we still look at that, and we have, at least for me, I have to say, no, that's not a big deal, because where I grew up and the people I grew up around in my neighborhood, that was a big deal. For them, it's not. And in fact, it's even bigger than that because they've grown up on social media and how they present themselves, how they present what they wear, how they present the products and services they buy and use, who their friends are, and when they present them on Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and wherever, that really defines who they are to all their friends. And so if they don't recognize the changes in society, if they're not part of those changes, I mean, they're going to stand out as not being up to speed with their peers. And so I think that's had a lot to do with it.
I'm the Vice President Digital for the National Association of Black Journalists. Last year, we met with the senior leadership team at ABC News, and we were talking about their lack of senior executives. And in that conversation, they said that, they had offered jobs to several different people, but none took them. And I said, you probably have a culture problem. And they sort of looked at me and said, no. I said, you probably need to examine your culture. Well, right now, their vice president, head of talent, is on administrative leave because of alleged racial and discriminatory language. You had to deal with this culture issue. You had to confront turning your entire organization upside down. Your former CEO, Tadima Ussery, who I know personally, you had to examine that, and you had to look at yourself. And you were very open and honest about what you as a man, how you had to confront these allegations of sexual harassment and the treatment of women within your organization. What was that? How hard was that for you to have to confront that?
It was brutal, but it was not nearly as hard as what the women in the organization had to go through. I always thought that I treated everybody equally, but to me, it was like a math equation. If I said something stupid to a man, okay, I could say the same stupid sophomoric thing to a woman. That meant, I treated them equally. If I said something to an African American or to a Latinx or to a white person, that meant I was treating them equally. But then through that difficult process, I learned the hard way that treating people equally does not mean treating them the same. That trying to be colorblind was a mistake, not an accomplishment. And that was the hard lesson that I learned and has really, pushed me forward in all of this. Because the hardest part, Roland, was finding out that, there were women at the organization that were afraid to go to work, that it was painful for them to go to work. And I didn't see it. And I had somebody there that was making it worse. And so, recognizing that, and I guess the takeaway for me and where I've really tried to grow from it was that I had to really dig in to treat people, to really get to know who a person was in order to be able to work with them, and to put together an organization and culture that was supportive of them, that everybody comes from a different place. And if I just treated people equally, treating people the same, that it doesn't respect their differences. And by not respecting their differences, not only was I creating a culture that was difficult for women in particular, but it was bad business. Because, we had white guys who looked like me trying to sell to Latinx women Mavs tickets. The Indian community is the 6th largest in the United States, and we didn't have anybody from that community selling to the community. We didn't have enough African Americans selling into the African American community or helping us with marketing, the people who knew the community best. And so I learned, like I said, being colorblind is the worst way to be, and it's really bad business.
You brought in Ceek Marshall to be the CEO. She worked at AT&T. Had a chance to meet her again when I was at the All-Star game in Chicago. Had no idea she was such a huge fan of mine. And again, she comes in. So you go from a black male CEO, Tadima Ussery, to a black female CEO in Ceek Marshall. What did her perspective, what again, how she saw it? So here you are looking at your organization, and then she's now looking at the organization. What was it like to sit here and you've been working with her and looking at how she sees it totally different than you?
Well, the difference was I could see it and look at it. She could feel it and experience it. She knew what people had been through as a woman, as an African-American woman, as a cancer survivor, as someone who had, risen up the corporate ladder and faced a lot of, harassment and discrimination in various places along her career. And so she could feel the difference, and that feeling, and I say feeling, it's truly intellectual as well, let her understand how to talk to people, how to hire better, how to interview better, how to have the right people, not only finding talent, but interviewing the talent and understanding where they were coming from, recognizing that, your resume wasn't necessarily the best way to gauge hiring, that there was more to a person's background, and then being able to translate that into business. That is just such a varied skill set that she just, had in every which way, that I didn't have. And that really just revitalized the entire organization. And I can't even thank her. There's not enough ways to thank St. Marshall for not only what she did for the Mavs, but what she's taught me.
I interviewed Mitch Landrieu, of course, former mayor of New Orleans. And in the interview, we talked about what he went through when he took down the Confederate statues in New Orleans. And in his book, he said something that was interesting. He talked about white fear. And he said, when it came to white fear, he said, white people, I know black people. They're not going to do to us what we did to them. It's okay. Stop freaking out. And Mitch and I talked about it. And I have been making this point. I'm actually working on a book dealing with this, that this moment that we're in and what we're dealing with, Mark, we're dealing with white fear, power, control. Oh, my God. The majority of kids in America, 18 and under, are people of color. Oh, my goodness, in 23 years, America's going to be a majority-minority country. What's going to happen? And I think the issue with Cap, it was white America was raised how they view the flag. And the anthem is different than black folks. Black folks, very much patriotic, but we know there were black soldiers who were lynched in their uniforms. We know that there were black GIs who could not buy houses and get loans and work in corporate America when they came back from World War II, came back from Korea and the Vietnam War. And so I think what is happening right now is there's this shift that's going on is you have this older generation that's like, but can we just hold on to old America as long as we can?
That's it. That's 100% it. They're trying to hold on to the way they like things to be. And that's always been the case, whether it's the 2020s or it's the 2000s or it's the 1970s, 60s, 50s, the oldest generation, they've been through it, they've seen their lives, and they're trying to hold on and don't want to deal with change. And it's just passing them by. The silent generation, the older boomers, I mean, it's hitting them right in the face. Like, I'll do certain interviews and the hate emails I get, but every single email I get from someone who's obviously white is always the same. It's like, first thing they write, I'm not a racist, because they get so defensive. And that's part of the problem. When white people hear the term white privilege, none of us say, what does that really mean? Right? We immediately get defensive and think, privilege, let me tell you a story, right? Whether it's their personal story, their parents' story, their grandparents. And I'm like, we're a nation of immigrants. Everybody has that story. And so it's not about that. And then you try to explain to them what white privilege is. And even then, they don't want to hear it. They get so defensive. Right. And we immediately create this response, right? We create this equivalency that says, I can't be a racist because. Right. And that's what we have to overcome. And that's why I've been trying to speak out, because I've got to get into the heads of white people and say, white privilege has nothing to do with you personally. White privilege has nothing to do with anything that's happened in your family history at all. Nothing at all. Well, why use the term white privilege? You use the term white privilege because it pisses you off and it freaks you out and makes you think. If they would have just said white skin issues, people would have just ignored it, or whatever other term, right? And so trying to get, it's uncomfortable for white people to deal with it, to address the term white privilege, but that's part of what we have to do. And, like you referred to, the older generation is going to fall off. And I really, really believe that the younger generations are just going to laugh at this point in time and look to see how stupid, their parents and grandparents were in dealing with race issues.
The only problem that we're seeing, though, when we look at this polling data, the racial views that even younger whites are having, and I keep telling people, Jim Crow had children, and Jim Crow will have grandchildren. And so one of the reasons why I very rarely call someone a racist is because, not that they're not a racist, it's because that, and this happened on TV. I was at CNN for 6 years, and it drove me crazy when we would have these debates, and I would just say, this is just stupid. Because this is what you would say, that's racist. And then the conversation becomes, so, no, it's not. So then it's like, racist, not racist. Racist, not racist. And I'm like, no. The issue, so now that's the debate, as opposed to all that stuff in between. What you said, what you did. And so what I focus on is what you said, what you did. Forget the label. And I'm like, no, what you did was racist. What you said was racist. Now let's talk about that versus racist, not racist, not racist, racist. And then that just takes a debate down a rabbit hole, and then you never deal with actually what happened.
You'll never solve that, right? And the worst part is talking to white people, and again, trying to create those conversations. It's trying to get them to understand the subtle things that we do that, you don't, even I don't like to use the term racist for the reasons you mentioned, the subtle things that extend systemic racism, right? The systemic aspect of it. Who's doing the interview? Yeah, you're going out there and you're checking off the box and you're bringing in a lot of African Americans and women to be interviewed, but the person doing the interviewing is white and 60 years old, right? And is not going to relate to a 22-year-old African-American transgender, whoever, pick whoever is fitting in that's young that they're not going to relate to. And so there's little things like that, or today, I got this email from this elderly lady, and who was trying to convince me that white people don't need to have these conversations. It's not our problem, et cetera, because she listens to hip hop music. And, it's just, and I said to her, do you have any friends that you think are racist? And she said, yeah, and I've stayed friends with them. And I said, did you ever say anything to this person to try to convince them that they're wrong, or even suggest to them that they shouldn't be doing these things? Yeah, I tried. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole thing. That's why this is a white person problem, because we have to do more than try, because we all know which one of our friends, acquaintances, or coworkers are, if not overtly racist, subtly racist.
Right.
And it's up to us when we hear and see those things, instead of just shaking our head and say, boy, that's not me, I'm not racist, and say, no, look, for the betterment of the country, when we pledge allegiance to the flag, it's for liberty and justice for all. And so if that flag truly means anything to you, and liberty and justice for all, your pledge means anything to you, you've got to do more than, if they don't respond, just accept it. You've got to say, come on, man, this is not right. Why are you there? Let's talk about this. Or let's get somebody you can talk to. Because if that person is even minimally, subtly racist at work, that's what they're conveying to their kids.
When we talk about, again, this notion of white fear, money also comes up. And this is what I keep telling people. If you want to understand America, you got to deal with money. And I mentioned Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg didn't give a damn what everybody thought. He was kind of like, whatever. You had, of course, African-American CEO Ken Chenault, led American Express for years, was on his board, who resigned saying he won't listen. Okay? So companies went, okay, Mark, we're going to get your attention. Pull our money out. Pull our money out. Okay, $56 billion knocked off because of the stock price. And what I keep telling folks is, and Dr. King understood this with Operation Breadbasket, if you want, the only way you can confront and change America, you've got to deal with money. When that black football player at Ole Miss said, I'm not playing another down as long as that flag stays up, and they saw that other black ball player transfer, and then all of a sudden, those coaches were like, hey,
guess what?
Y'all got to bring this flag down, because if there's a rebellion among these black ball players, we ain't got nothing. SEC saying no championships in the state. That's what brought that flag down.
Yep. Yeah, look, there's no question money matters. And what I would tell you, Roland, is bottom-up money matters as much, if not more, because where we're really going to have an impact is by investing in people of color, women of color, in their businesses and helping them grow. Because as I said about the Mavs, the lesson I learned, there's a phenomenal business opportunity selling into the communities of color, selling into ethnic communities, and the best people with the best capabilities to sell and to create businesses for those communities are the people who live there. And so I'm out there knocking on doors, trying to create opportunities and invest. And I've invested over the last couple of years tens of millions of dollars into people of color, and they've done well because as much as the big companies like to think that they're checking the boxes and doing the right thing, you know, all the people who are out there grinding and hustling and starting small, Damon John, my buddy from Shark Tank, calls it the power of broke. They're the ones that are going to create the world-changing businesses. And to me, that's where the greatest money is going to speak the loudest.
Look, I've spent 6 years at CNN, 13 years at TV One Cable Network, 11 years on the Tom Joyner Morning Show. And when my TV One show ended, I said, no, I got to launch a digital show. And folks told me, dude, you're nuts. Folks were like, man, but we would love for you to go back to CNN or MSNBC. I was like, no. I said, I did that already. And the fact of the matter is, I wouldn't be in control of the show. And so when we started this.
How do you think they felt when we started the whole streaming industry 25 years ago?
Right.
They were like, you're an idiot.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever seen TV?
No, and I remember. People were like, real player? Yeah, whatever. And in fact, I was working at the Star Telegram, and they had a thing called Star Text. And I used to go down to their offices, and the reporters were like, Roland, what the hell are you doing? I said, I'm trying to tell y'all that's where we're going. And the thing is, when I launched this here, what my producer, he was like, Roland, do a podcast. I said, nah. He's like, why? I said, because I actually launched the first Black News Source podcast in 2005. And I said, no, I'm telling you, video news show. I said, that's the next thing. And all these people were saying, you're nuts, you're crazy. And look, we bootstrapped it. It was like, hey, I mean, it was like took cuts, lived off of my speeches, and we just been building it. But the whole thing is, now all of a sudden people are going, whoa, you've grown this thing. You're going to hit 600,000 subscribers on YouTube. Y'all now doing 20 million views a month because the audience, I kept saying, ain't nobody doing Black news. The audience is there. But if you super serve the audience, they will respond. And too many of these people are bypassing Black entrepreneurs and Latino entrepreneurs and women entrepreneurs who are going, trust me, we know our audience. But don't think they're not there.
You know how much buying power you have too, right? You know, and it's just, look, the pandemic is horrible in so many ways. The civil unrest is great in some ways, but the riot and looting were painful in a lot of ways, as obviously George Floyd and all the deaths have been. But when we look back at 2020, the summer of 2020, we're going to see so many great businesses that were created, so much social change that came out of this. But this is such a unique time to start a business because, like, you know, you mentioned Zuckerberg and Facebook, all the old school legacy businesses, and I'm including Facebook as an old school company that's been around almost 20 years, you know, they're trying to protect their legacy businesses. They're trying to get back to doing it the way it's always been done. There are a lot of people of color, there are a lot of young people, Gen Z, that are out there starting businesses that don't have to protect old parts of their business. You know, they get to disrupt. They get to just walk in and say, this is the way I envision America 2.0 looking and working. And so I'm going to create a business this way. You know, I work with this kid, Ezel Moon, who's doing interviews on Instagram and on YouTube, trying to mentor him to get him going through for this very reason, because there's nobody out there that's doing interviews of young people of color. You know, Black news, you're right on, Roland. There's a whole market there. And, you know, you should probably talk to Ezel because there's a whole market for young oriented news as well, and interviewing young people of color. Ezel Moon, E-Z-E-L Moon on Instagram, and his actual personal one is Resolute King, but he's talented as hell, and there's going to be so many opportunities and so many world-changing companies created out of this pandemic that in 20 years we're going to look back and just say, wow. Final question for you. You have been an extremely vocal critic of Donald Trump. You went on Sean Hannity's show, didn't get many words in with all the nonsense from Sean. But the point we talked about earlier, Donald Trump is appealing
He's pushing those racial buttons, and he is appealing to the people who want the America of 1940, 50, 60, and 70, and they do not want this multicultural America that we have right now.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. And, he can't stop it. It's just the reality. The door is open, and you've got the, majority, minority that are walking through it right now. Right now, this is a point in time. That's why the NBA has really been so smart. There are only so many points. There's just probably in each individual's lifetime, one time when you can have dramatic social change for the better, where any individual, because of the social media online world that we live in, can really contribute to making the country better. We are in the midst of one of those moments right now. And any of us, in particularly white people, but all of us have got to contribute and step up where we can to make this thing really stick and really happen faster. And like you said it, Roland, 5 weeks. All this has happened in 5 weeks. Think about what we can do the next 5 weeks.
Well,
the next 5 months.
Yep, this is what I call the third Reconstruction. We had one from 1865 to 1877, another from 1954 to 1968. This is the third Reconstruction, and we should fix in this one what we knew didn't get fixed in the first two. Mark Cuban, great conversation. Wish we could chat more. Well, you're welcome to come back on Roland Martin Unfiltered anytime. I would love to get back to Dallas. I have a house there. My parents live there in my house with my sister and my niece. But I don't play with this COVID stuff. So I need to tamp down in my home state before I come back.
Wear a mask. That's all I can say. Wear a mask. I got mine right over there.
Oh no, we keep the mask right here. So I got the kente cloth mask. So.
Oh wait, hold on! Don't cut me up. Yeah.
Of course, you got a Mavericks mask. So I gotta get my guys. I gotta order me a Roland Martin Unfiltered mask. Cause trust me, I'm with you. It's always branding. Trust me.
Always.
All right, Mark Cuban, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland. I loved it. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, folks. Back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
Folks, at Ceek.com, partnership with us. Folks have these headphones, amazing headphones. And also, there's this virtual reality headset right here. Of course, the headphone, 360-degree, 4D, amazing sound. You absolutely love it for gaming, for listening to music, for watching movies, you name it. Go to Ceek.com, CEEK.com, and use this promo code RMVIP 2020, RMVIP 2020, right here. And so, folks, again, and so Mary Spio is a sister. She is the inventor of this. It's her website as well. So it's Ceek.com, CEEK.com. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, yo, Peace World, what's going on? It's the Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, my name is Brescia Webb, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Ow. Well, I like a nice filter usually, but we can be unfiltered.
What's going on? This is Tobias Trevelyan. And if you're ready, you are listening to and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, this is Cheryl Lee Ralph, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, could it be any other way? Really? It's Roland Martin.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. As Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.